So now we're going to make our crossbody strap and our handles. You'll want to grab all your pieces. Your crossbody strap will be labeled with your A if you're doing option A or if you're doing option C. And your handles as well will be called TSH or tote straps and handles, and these will be for option B or option C. So depending on which one you're doing, these will be the pieces you need for this. You'll also notice that my pattern pieces, I've already went ahead and pressed them all. This was just to save time for the video so that I wasn't stopping to do that and I could just get right into explaining everything. So for your crossbody strap, it's not going to be folded. It's going to be one big long piece as Kristen gave in the pattern. You're going to take that and fold it so that the long raw edges meet and then give that a press. So you'll fold it and press it. Once you're done that all the way down the strap, you're going to fold the long raw edges in to meet that center crease and press it again. So you'll give this a press. Once that's all pressed, you'll then take your piece, fold it in half back along the original crease, and that encloses all your raw edges. In the pattern, Kristen gives instructions for how to use some strap end hardware. If you're not using strap end hardware, you can simply press this short end so that it's up by a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch. You'll press it, then you'll continue folding everything the way I explained. This will just help enclose all the raw edges and you won't see anything, and you'll do that on both short edges. There's also a video on my YouTube channel of how I do the ends of my straps. So you can also go ahead and check that out, and maybe you'll want to do your strap that way. That's the way I'll be doing that in the video. So again, that's on my YouTube channel, and I'll link that in the description of this video so that it's easy for you to find. So what you'll do once you have that all folded and pressed, you want to sew it with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on both long edges, but if you're hiding your raw edges, you'll fold it, press it, and you'll sew all the way around. So I'm going to do that now. And this is what your finished crossbody strap will look like if you've enclosed the raw edges. If you are not doing that and you are instead using something like faux leather, cork, vinyl, and you're using this strap end, you'll leave them raw. You can even do that with the cotton, and you'll screw these in. Kristen gives the instructions in the pattern for how to do this. So that's what it would look like if I used one of them. I unfortunately don't have enough of these, so I can't use that, otherwise I would. So that is my crossbody strap, all done. We can set this aside. Sorry, we're not setting this aside. We're going to add the hardware. You'll need your slider. So you'll get out the slider. That's the hardware with this little middle bar in the center. I'm going to get closer to the camera so you can see what I'm doing. So in order to put this slider onto your strap, what you're going to do, or what I do, is I hold the bar down at the bottom to keep it away from the top. I slip my strap in, then I push the bar so it's against the strap like this, and I put the strap down inside, and then that bar is now in the middle of the strap, just like that. You can then use a rivet or sew in order to hold this in place. I'm going to go ahead and use a rivet with my rivet press. If you don't have a rivet press, that's okay. You can sew it, sorry, or use Chicago screws, which is another great option and alternative to rivets. They just screw together with a screwdriver. Nothing else is required for them. So again, in the pattern, Kristen tells you that you can sew a box, or you can use the rivets or Chicago screws. So I'm going to go ahead, punch the holes for that. Just want to put this to hold it in place so it doesn't shift on me. Usually I mark, but I'm just gonna eyeball this because, you know, it doesn't really need to be perfect. It's centered, it should, and usually I'm pretty on, but in terms of where you place them, it doesn't have to be a certain amount of distance. So I've punched 2 holes, and I'm going to go ahead and install my rivets. If you used the strap end, you'll want to be careful of where you're placing your rivets because the strap end will be on the end here, so you'll want to place them up a bit higher. I ran out of rainbow rivets, so I had to use some gunmetal. That's okay though, it matches with the zebra. So the other thing, if you are using rivets and you sewn a box with an X, you'll just want to be careful because if you go through the X with your hole punch, you will break your stitches and that can cause it to all unravel on you. So usually when I sew a box, I just add the rivets and I don't sew an X. If I'm not adding rivets, I generally like to sew an X just for extra security and strength in the strap. So again, be careful when you're punching your hole so you don't hit any of your stitching, so you don't break your stitches. So that is how you install that slider. The next thing you'll do is you need to install your swivel hooks. So with your strap on your table, I like to place it so that this end where it's loose is up. I slide my slider on to the other end. So here's the other end. I slide my slider on, or not my slider, sorry, my swivel hook. Now take the end that has the slider. I'm going to, again, push the bar down so it's against that side, the middle bar, so it's against the bottom. Slide the strap through and up, give it enough slack. Push the bar against the side that you just slid up through the slider. So see how this is the piece I just slid up through the slider. I'm going to take this piece, push it against that, and slide it down. And it'll look like that. You'll know it works because when you pull on it, it kind of gives, it's just like that. It's nice and tight. If it doesn't and it pulls on you and it's too loose, you might have put it on wrong. Next thing you're going to do is lay your strap on the table again. I like to have it so the slider is against the table, and then I put my swivel hook on the other end. So I'll slide my slider down so you can see it. So slider would be facing the table, slide my swivel hook on, and I fold this piece up, just like that. So the back end is against, or what would be the raw end would be against the back where you don't really see it. You're going to do the same thing, use Chicago screws, rivets, or sew around and then sew a box, and then sew an X or add rivets in the middle of your box. I'm just going to go ahead and punch holes and add rivets again. It's just nice and easy that way and quicker. So I'm going to do that again. Sometimes I save adding rivets for right at the end so that when I'm adding rivets anywhere else in the bag, I can just go ahead and punch holes out at the same time. I just find it saves a little bit of time instead of switching out constantly with my dies. And I'm just eyeballing where it goes. I'm a bit of a rebel, I guess. And there you have it. Your crossbody strap is now complete. You have your slider and your 2 swivel hooks. You can set this aside. We don't need it anymore until later. Set it aside, and that is it. Okay, so next up is working on our handles. Now, there are many different ways how to do your handles. You can do them the same way we folded our crossbody strap. You can make them double-sided, and there's many different ways to do them double-sided. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways I do mine. So the first way is with cutting them. So if you're doing them double-sided, and you're using 1-inch hardware, you're going to cut them 2 inches wide. So if you're doing double-sided with, say, vinyl, cork, faux leather, you'll cut them each piece 2 inches wide by the length that Kristen gives in the pattern. If you are using cork, faux leather, and vinyl, you'll cut the length by 2 inches by the length in that material. You'll also cut 2 in your cotton by the length and the width. I'm going to do these ones in both cotton just to show you how they look, both done in cotton, but I'm also going to show you an option with the other bag using faux leather and cotton as well. So in this one, I've cut them 1 inch wide, my cotton 1 inch wide by the length Kristen gives, and I've also cut the second piece 1 inch wide by the length Kristen gives. I've drawn a line down the center of the material, I've folded the raw edges in to meet that line, and I've pressed it. I've also pressed my edges in, my short edges in, by 1/4 of an inch and pressed everything. Once you have them all pressed, you'll then take these handles and you'll match them up with the raw edges in the center so that they're not shown. And you'll pin it all together. And you'll do this all the way down the strap, getting everything all lined up, nice and neat. They're the same width, so they'll line up exactly together. There won't be any overhang, or shouldn't be. If there is, it's okay. Also, if your line is not perfectly drawn down the center, that's okay, as long as you get this folded and it ends up being 1 inch wide. That's all that really matters. If you have a way or a method that you like to use for making these handles, go ahead and make them that way, however you're comfortable doing this. I just really wanted to show this just so that some of you who may not have seen this before can use this technique in any other bags that you may make, and including for this bag. So I'm just pinning, as you can see, I'm just pinning all the way down until I get to the other end. If you prefer, rather than pinning, you can also use double-sided tape. So before you press, you can put double-sided tape, or after you press, sorry, you can put double-sided tape along both sides of the center line, and then put your fabric into the center, and then that way there, when you're pinning here, it's easier. Or you can also, before you pin, after you've added the double-sided tape and you've pressed, you can put double-sided tape again along here and stick them together, and that just helps make it easier. And it's a little bit less time consuming too doing it that way. I just don't have a lot of double-sided tape right now. I haven't ordered any, so I'm trying to save what I do have for when I do really need it. So you see it's all pinned. Once it's all pinned, you'll go ahead and sew around all 4 edges using 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And the stitch length you like to use when you sew your straps. I like to use 3 when I'm sewing my straps and handles, but you can use whatever stitch length you prefer. Don't forget to always backstitch at start and stop. So there's how the finished strap will look when it's double-sided, so one side with the fabric on one and on the other. You can repeat that for the second strap